God's saying, your way will not work. My way will. What you do, what I do, you call stupid. What you do, I call fruitless. It has no power. Verse 22, the Jews demanded miraculous signs, and the Greeks looked for wisdom. But we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to the Jews. They were offended by Christ. And foolishness to the Gentiles. They considered it stupidity or an ignorant notion. But to those whom God has called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than man's wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than man's strength. A lot of times we kind of come before God and we kind of set up these, need to know things. All right, God, here's the deal. I will believe in you when you answer all of my questions to all of my satisfactory, and I got to like the answer as well. Then I'll trust in you. And you're like, wait a second. God has to come into your little box and answer everything your way? Okay, that was the Greeks, the wisdom system. He's got to answer all my questions. If you just answer this last question, I got to be honest with you, and those that can attest have been walking with Jesus for a while, there are times when God doesn't answer all of your questions. He just asks for your faith and your obedience. Or maybe you're on the other side, and you're kind of like the Jews, and you just, this, what have you done for me now? I need this sign. I need you to do this for me. Okay, God, here's the deal. I will believe in you when you help me find a job. Then, when I get a job, I'll know that's from you, and I'll put my faith in you. I'll believe in you, God, when you heal my mom, when you take care of her and you make her all well. Then I'll know that you're God. If you could just take care of my marriage and just solve this issue that's going on between us, then I'll know you're God. If you could just fill in the blank, right? And we have kind of this rationale where if God could just answer all my questions like I want him to, if God could just do everything that I want him to do, then and only then will I give him everything and trust in him. And here's the problem. It presupposes that God's the servant and we're in charge. And the truth is we're not. Nicole and I get together with another couple probably once or twice a month, and we play cards together. We play this game called Rook. Anyone ever heard of it? Yes? No? Okay, a few of you. Those of you don't, it's okay. Basically, there's this one card in there that's kind of like the trump card. It's got, in our little deck, it's got a picture of like a crow, and you throw this thing down, and it's like, what's up? Because you win the hand and everything. And so the whole time you're kind of, figuring out the card and where this rook card might be, who might have it. So we usually play guys against the girls, and it's perfect because, the two guys, we count cards, and we're constantly figuring out things, and the girls, they're just like sipping coffee and playing, throwing cards out. And so it's wonderful because they get to talk back and forth, and we get to win. And so, it works out perfectly for everyone involved. But there comes this whole deal where as we're playing these cards, where we throw down this trump card, and it's like yes, and everyone on the whole table just kind of groans. Oh, you had it, and it's like we have this trump card. We feel like, right? Where okay, God, here's the deal. If you could answer this for me, if you could do this for me, then, all right, then. And God's like, you know what? I don't play cards. I could care less about your trump card. It means nothing to me. We kind of presuppose that God He will act on our behalf, and it's almost like we're little gods telling God what to do before, we'll give ourselves to Him. And here's the truth. God doesn't need us. We need God. We need Him to come in and to save us. God does not enter into relationships where He is underneath somebody awaiting orders. God comes into relationships where He is in charge. I was driving into this morning, I saw this sign on the church or whatever. Another church said, God's my co-pilot. No, God's my pilot. He's it. He's in charge. The problem is when we do that, we start our investigation at the wrong place. We start our investigation at the wrong place and looking for God. Where it really needs to start, where we really need to start is at the cross. And when we look at the cross, we need to ask ourselves just two questions. The first is this: what does the cross tell me about God? What does the cross tell me about God? And the second is, what does the cross tell me about me? I mean, what does it tell me about me? Well, it tells us about God, right? That He is good, that He is holy, that He is loving, that He cares for us, that He desires to have a relationship with us, that He sent His Son to make a way that we might have a relationship with Him, that He moved on our behalf. He is a good and gracious God who loves us dearly. But what does the cross tell me about me? It tells me I'm not as good as I think I am. That without Jesus, I am stuck in my sin. I don't measure up. I'm in need of a Savior to come and to rescue me. Start your investigation at the cross. Here's one of the things. It's almost impossible to bring self-reliant people to Christ without hurting their pride. Because you kind of feel like, oh, I'm good enough, I got enough talent, I got enough ability, I should be fine. But yet, when encountering the message of the gospel, the first part of that message is what? You're not fine. You have sin in your life. You have a problem that needs to be taken care of. And without that, you don't have a relationship with God. There's a danger when we water down the gospel, when we sand off those edges, because we no longer tell people the truth. It's like somehow we can make those who are stuck in sin comfortable with the doctrine of the holiness of God. It just can't happen. I mean, there's an uncomfortableness to it. I don't know about you, but when I realized that I had sin in my life and I needed a Savior, there's this thing of like, oh man, oh boy, really? Verse 26 says this: brothers, think of what you were when you were called. Not many of you were wise by human standards. Not many of you were influential. Not many of you were of noble birth. These guys were pretty much the have-nots of the Corinth society. And yet God chose them to make a point, right? To take the proud of mankind and to silence them. I mean, think about you. Where were you, before you were a believer? Some of us would be happy to share. Some of us would not like to come up and see all the pictures and stuff broadcast up there. But a lot of us came from just humble beginnings. I mean, we're normal people that God has reached down and that He has bestowed His blessing upon, and that He has saved through His Son Jesus. Verse 27, God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. He's saying, hey, you in the Church of Corinth, you're simple people. And sometimes I think it's almost easier for simple people to grasp the understanding and the need that they have a Savior, that they need a Savior, right? Because if you're like super smart, super talented, all that kind of stuff, you feel like almost you can hide. If you're super successful in your business and all that stuff, it's almost a feeling, okay, I don't really need God because I'm doing so well. But yet, in the end, what's the truth? All of us don't measure up. So whether we're, really smart and really successful and all this kind of stuff, eventually we fall short. It might take us a little longer to realize, if you're, blessed enough to be in that boat. It might take you a little longer to realize that, but eventually you got to come to the realization, none of us measure up. Verse 28, He chose the lowly things of this world, the despised things, and the things that are not, to nullify the things that are, so that no one may boast before Him. The principle here is simply this: the cross humiliates the proud. That's later. The cross humiliates the proud. No one can boast. I mean, our salvation is not, us and God kind of working together. Our salvation is God doing all the work. God's the one who moved on our behalf. God's the one who sent his son. God's the one who went to the cross. God's the one who conquered death. God's the one who offers us in exchange this righteousness, this imputed righteousness. God's the one who did all that. I have a son named Camden. He's a video game fanatic. I mean, he just, if we could leave the video games on 24 hours a day, he would be right in front of that TV playing. I mean, he just loves to play. So obviously we, narrow it down and monitor that. But he's so funny to watch because, if this is the TV, he can't sit down. So he stands up and he's dancing back and forth, but he gravitates right towards the TV as he's playing, and he just kind of gets right in front of it, and he's right there. And it just frustrates anyone who's playing with him because we're always like, Cam, sit down. And I was like, oh, sorry. I mean, he's just tractor beam right into that thing.